Imagine finding a message, not in a bottle, but in a time capsule. A message sent from exactly a century ago that just cracks open this window into a totally different way of seeing the world. Well, that's exactly what we're doing today. We are diving into this mysterious, fascinating magazine from 1923 called The All-Seeing Eye.
All right, so let's set the scene. It's July 1923. We're in Los Angeles, California. This is the world that gave birth to our little time capsule. And, right from the very first page, we hit a complete puzzle.
And here's the first mystery. Its business model. Or, well, the lack of one. The magazine says it, plain as day. It can't be bought. It has no price. It's handed out privately based on free will offerings. So you, the reader, you get to decide what it's worth. I mean, can you even imagine that today? No subscription, no price tag, just a suggestion to chip in whatever you think is fair.
So who's the person behind all this? It was one man, Manly P. Hall. He was the writer, the editor, the publisher, the whole shebang. And this thing was his passion project, a totally non-commercial magazine aimed at his students and basically anyone interested in what he called ancient wisdom. This was never about making money. It was about building a community around a shared set of ideas.
The magazine's mission couldn't be clearer. This was a non-commercial enterprise, zero advertising. They weren't even looking for other writers. The whole point was just to get these ideas out there, funded by the people who actually found value in them. This was for, students and truth seekers, not your average person on the street. So what kind of wisdom are we talking about here? Well, this is where it gets really interesting.
So you open it up, and you might expect some kind of cosmic secrets, right? Nope. It starts with something incredibly down to earth. This really blunt, no-nonsense kind of self-help that honestly feels like it could have been written yesterday.
And boom, there's the main idea of this first article, called Mental Hazards versus Hereditary Failures. The author does not mess around. He basically says we love to blame our problems on something else, and our favorite excuse, our biggest crutch, is our family history. To really drive the point home, he invents this satirical character, John Doe, and every single one of his flaws is blamed on some ridiculous ancestor. So he's bald? Oh, that's because his great-grandfather was scalped by Cherokee Indians. His lopsided jaw? Well, that came from an uncle who fought Moorish pirates, obviously. Even his swearing is blamed on some distant nephew from the Civil War. It's completely absurd, and that is exactly the point. And then comes the knockout punch. The author calls blaming your family tree a mental hazard for people who are, and I'm quoting here, too hopelessly lacking in backbone. Wow. The message from 1923 is loud and clear. Stop making excuses. Your successes, your failures, they're on you. You're not just another nut hanging on the family tree. So right about now you're thinking, okay, I get it. It's like an old-school Tony Robbins tough love kind of thing. But then you turn the page, and the entire vibe just shifts on a dime. Was it really all just practical advice? Oh, not even close.
Because just a few pages after being told to take personal responsibility, the magazine throws us headfirst into this wild, fantastical story about secret orders, lost continents, and, yes, immortal beings.
Okay, first, just a quick definition so we're all on the same page. A shaman is basically a spiritual figure, a kind of priest or medicine man who can act as a bridge to the spirit world. And the hero of this next story, he claims to be the very last one.
The story is told by a narrator who became friends with this mysterious, incredibly wise Native American man that he only knows as Uncle Joe. For years, Uncle Joe is just this quiet, respected guy. And then, one day he drops this bombshell. He's not just some old man. He is an immortal being, the last in a line of priest kings from Atlantis.
The whole story unfolds like this epic myth. Uncle Joe takes the narrator deep into the desert, to a hidden cave. And inside, the narrator finds 12 perfectly preserved mummies of ancient priest kings, just sitting there in a circle. Uncle Joe explains these are his brothers from a lost order. He then reveals that he is the immortal spirit of the Red Man, and his job is finally done. He takes his seat on the one empty golden throne, an emperor of the dead, to wait until the very last of his people have passed away. I mean, what a breathtaking shift from the practical advice just a few pages earlier. So what do we have? On one hand, tough love self-help. On the other, high fantasy mysticism. You'd think that's enough of a whiplash. But nope, the magazine pivots again, and it brings all these huge cosmic ideas right down to earth, right into the living room, with advice for family life. It turns out this ancient wisdom wasn't just for personal growth or understanding some grand cosmic history. It was meant to be used,
practically, especially when it came to raising kids. And we see exactly how in two articles, Occult Eugenics and Just Lonely.
Okay, I know, the term occult eugenics sounds pretty strange to our ears today, but its principles are all about the spiritual and psychological health of the home. First, harmony is everything. Arguments between parents can literally dwarf a child's spirit. Second, it says children are basically clairvoyant. They feel what their parents are thinking, so you can't fake it. Third, you've got to lead by example, not just by telling them what to do. And finally, the goal is to understand your kids, not just boss them around. Because fear destroys any chance of love and trust.
And this idea right here is really the emotional heart of the magazine's advice for families. The article Just Lonely says that the greatest tragedy is a child who feels emotionally alone, who can't talk to their parents anymore. It argues that millions of kids are growing up lonely, even in good homes, simply because that true companionship with their parents is missing.
So, what are we supposed to make of all this? A magazine that jumps from telling you to get over your family excuses to telling you epic tales of Atlantean kings to then giving you advice on raising a confident kid. How in the world does all of that fit together?
Well, when you actually lay it all out, you start to see the complete worldview that was being offered. It was a whole system for living. For yourself, the rule was radical personal responsibility, no excuses. For your place in the universe, the cosmos, you get this epic spiritual history that gives your life a kind of grand mystical purpose. And for your home, the idea is that it's a sacred space, a place where you are responsible for nurturing the souls of the next generation.
So in the end, this wasn't just a random jumble of articles. It was a complete philosophy, a real roadmap for life. It connected your personal, everyday struggles to this massive cosmic story. And then it grounded that huge story in your most important daily job, like being a good parent. It was a weird mix for sure, but it worked. It was coherent.
And that kind of leaves us with one last thought. This magazine from 1923 feels so peculiar, right? Like a relic from another planet. But think about it. A century later, as we try to piece together our own sense of meaning from wellness apps and productivity gurus and pop science books and spiritual podcasts, is our way of doing things really any less strange? Or are we all just creating our own modern-day versions of the all-seeing eye? Something to think about.